Welcome to Barbarian Builds. Join me while I craft this entrance to a Lich's lair. Before we start, let me just say none of the products I use are sponsoring this video. Also, this would be great for a Halloween one-shot, but somehow I messed it up and didn't manage to finish it in time for the occasion. I'm going to start by making some rocks, and these are going to take some time to dry, and that's why I'm making those before anything else. I've learned this technique from the YouTube channel Nerdforge. If you don't know them, you should. They're awesome. Link in the description. To make these rocks, you only need tinfoil and plaster. So you wrap your tinfoil and then you unwrap it and make these kinds of molds. You then make your plaster mix and you pour it into these molds. Not too much, make it thin. I kind of didn't. So yeah, that was a mistake. Another thing I didn't do was folding the tinfoil before making the molds. So I had a couple of them leak. That was also a mistake. You're gonna find lots of them in this video. That's fine, we're learning. While I thought about what I should do next, I let some of that undead love sink in. I'm going to be cutting a lot of XPS foam, so I switched the blades on my cutting knife. I'm a fan of eyeballing stuff, so I'm figuring out where my skull is going to end up, and then I'm freehand drawing the shape I want to cut out. Cutting XPS foam is kind of hard, so you want to start with shallow cuts and cut deeper every time you go through your lines. With my rough shape cut out, I start taking out small pieces and smoothing those edges. Now that I've got my base, I use it to draw on top of another XPS board. I use this as a guide as well as the skull to tell me where the stairs are going to be, and I, again, draw it by hand. I will then cut it and repeat the process for the remaining layers. Specifically for this first layer, I'll cut out my stairs so that I know they'll fit perfectly. I'll then cut this piece into 3/3, one of which I'll throw in the trash. The other two are going to be my stairs. I then cut the top remaining layer to make the steps. I write an X and a number on the bottom of each layer so that I don't mess up when I'm assembling. Also, these eye sockets are going to be trouble further ahead, so I'm going to cover them. I cut a piece of acetate film and parchment paper I had laying around, and I glued them inside the skull with my hot glue gun. For the XPS Foam layers, I tried two different things. I used this nailless glue, as well as my hot glue gun. I had never tried this nailless glue before, so I wanted to test it out. I was expecting it to glue faster. For the stairs, I just used my hot glue gun. I'm giving out this build, but I'm leaving the inside of the skull hollow, so that the future owner can decide if they want to put some LED lights inside. After this assembly, it was again time to smooth out the edges. And then it was time to take our trustworthy tinfoil ball and roll it on our playable area to add some texture to it. As I finished texturing, one of my most feared moments was coming. I removed the plaster from the molds and broke it off in pieces. But I wasn't ready just yet to start gluing those to my model. First, I had to figure out what to do with this hand. Originally, the hand and the skull were glued together, so there were these holes in the hand. I tried covering them up with hot glue. I then glued the hand on the ground to make it seem like this huge skeleton was stuck underground trying to get out. I put PVA glue on selected areas and poured sawdust on top of it. I figured this could eventually be some kind of dried grass spots. This was definitely the hardest part of the puzzle. I started gluing with the nailless glue all the pieces of plaster that I had turned into rocks, only to find out I didn't have enough. So I made more, but this time I folded the tinfoil in half. And poured smaller portions. At this time I was really proud of the result, but I had to stop because it was Halloween night and I had to prepare for a D&D session. In case you're wondering, we played Shemshime's Bedtime Rhyme from Candlekeep Mysteries and had a blast. And now a word from our sponsors. No, I'm kidding. I've got no sponsors. Yet. Before any kind of paint, I wanted to cover the eyes. This allows me to be sloppy with my primer. And who doesn't want to be sloppy? Am I right? Am I right? No? Okay. Sorry. So just like another YouTube channel you need to check out, Black Magicraft, link in the description, I'm using Mod Podge mixed with black acrylic paint, serving both as insulation and primer. You may have noticed before, but I'm always using ice cream or takeaway boxes. It's a way to reuse all the plastic that comes into our home. This mix has to cover everything, and I do mean everything. When I removed the tape, there was a little bit of paint underneath, so I just used a paintbrush and a bit of water to remove it. Now most of this is going to be covered in gray, so I mixed up some black acrylic paint, white acrylic paint, and silver acrylic paint. This small amount of silver will give it a bit of a shine. I try to make this gray tone a little bit darker than my intended result, because I know that later on I'll be adding some lighter dry brushing. Next, I got some of the gray I had done for the stone, and I added a bit of burnt sienna to get this kind of arid earth tone. As you can see, I was not a perfectionist, because later on I used a smaller brush to define those edges. Again, I got a bit of that stone gray, but this time I added some white and made a lighter gray to start my dry brushing. Now, if you don't know what dry brushing is, I think it speaks for itself. You dry your brush as much as you can before you start painting. As you can see, there's almost no paint going on that paper towel. This technique really makes the textures stand out. After this gray dry brush, I applied some ochre yellow dry brush to the dried grass spots. And finally, an almost white dry brush, using your paintbrush ever so slightly, just to highlight the harshest edges. Once everything is dry, it's time for varnish. Don't forget to shake it for at least 1 minute, and don't forget your protection. Now the secret here is a good distance and thin layers. Don't overdo it. If you do, and your Mod Podge didn't cover all your XPS, your Varnish is going to start melting your model. And there it is. Is it perfect? No. Is it good? Also no. But I'd still take it to my gaming table, and I'm very proud of it. This has been Barbarian Builds. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time,